All right, good day, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Spark Your Fire. I'm your host, David Shi. And look, we've got another guest today on the show, another property investor and a buyer's agent as well, I got to say. We've had a lot of property investor turned buyer's agent, and we love their stories, mate. Let me tell you, these are the segments that most people want to know. But today I have Adeel Rizvi from Ariza Buyers Agent. Okay, so he is the founder and the property strategist of this company. So Adeel, welcome on the show.
David, thank you so very much for having me. Welcome, everyone. And thanks again, David, for having me today.
Lovely, mate. Lovely, mate. Look, like I said, like I preface, most people love a good story about, what they learned, what they've bought properties and, what type of things that they really want to understand. Okay, well, how did you establish your property portfolio? What did you learn throughout that journey and that kind of stuff? So, you know, so I think today, as a property investor angle, that's what I like to cut it in as for this conversation today. But look, Adeel, I think you have an interesting background to start off with. Can you tell us a bit about how you started? Like, obviously, you're a migrant. I think for those people who's on the YouTube, they'll be able to
Yep.
see that, you're obviously a migrant. Can you tell us which background you're coming from and what you were doing in Australia to start off with?
Yeah. Thanks, David. Thanks for having me, I guess. And very pumped to sharing the story today. And thanks for the opportunity.
Beautiful.
So I arrived in Australia, as you mentioned, as a permanent migrant back around 12 years ago now. And it seems just like yesterday, to be honest.
Mm,
And I come from an engineering background. Also have worked as a project manager, have worked as a contract manager, have worked for private companies as well as public sector.
yes.
So I actually had my experience in different areas, in different industries when I arrived in Australia as well. And I was lucky, I would say, to be perfectly honest. I was really lucky to buy my first property really early when I was here.
Okay.
And that was like 9, 10 years ago. And luckily, as I say, it was more luck than anything else at that point because I had no idea about property markets and stuff. I just landed on a good property, and it was in Southwest Sydney. Consulted a friend actually who actually guided me in that process as well.
Okay.
So that was all my due diligence. That was all my research at the time,
It's
but
the
it turned
mates
out to be
process. The
really
mates
well. Yeah, it was all a lucky charm, I would say.
Southwest Sydney. Is that a first home that you got in or
That was the first home. Yeah, that was really the first home. And at the time, to be perfectly honest, we did not like the idea of living over there. No one was buying over there. That
right?
was the only thing I could get in my budget. So a home which was just shy, or which was around 470 grand
Okay.
at the time, and decent size of land, house plus granny. So that works well
Oh,
at the
wow.
time. And we said, let's do it. Let's go for it. So the granny was recently built at the time. It was pretty new. So we got a good deal. But yeah, that was really the first one.
So you bought it for 476, and how much was it renting for at that point? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, at that point it was renting, I think in total it was renting around 580, 600, something like that with
So
house and granny
house
combined.
plus granny, right? So both
House
both
plus granny, yeah,
covered.
exactly. House plus granny, yeah.
That's an amazing, like a
So I think it
6%
was around
gross rental.
maybe 570, 580, to be honest. I don't exactly remember.
Sure. Yeah,
But yeah,
that's
that
okay.
was not more than 600, I can tell you.
And that was in, they say 10 years ago. So basically about
20,
2014,
yeah, 2014 actually.
just
2014
around
it was. Yeah, yeah.
just around the time when Sydney's about to take off too.
About to take off. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that was the time. And see, it turned out the reason I say it was a lucky charm, it was a good decision, luckily, because it turned out to be a good decision. We did not like the area at the time, but we just bought to enter, get into the market.
Mm.
So we did not think of it like our dream home.
Yeah.
We said, okay, this is what we can afford. Let's go for it, right? So I remember our borrowing at the time was around 520, 530.
Mhm.
So we had to get something within that. And we just got it and we said, okay, let's do it. And we never lived in that house. So we continued to rent west.
Rent, yep,
And
yep.
I had no idea what rent vesting is. I never heard that term at the time, but now I realized that I was actually rent vesting. So we continued to live in Western Sydney, but we had that property which was our first property, but turned it into an investment from day one. And that was in Southwest Sydney. So yeah, that's how it started.
Beautiful, mate. Beautiful. Whereabouts in Southwest Sydney, if you don't mind me sharing? Which suburb?
That was in Campbelltown.
Oh, Campbelltown. Yeah, Campbelltown has had significant growth since then. So,
Yep.
I think I can understand. Where were you guys living at that point? Because obviously you say you don't want to be living in that area. Were you closer to Palmyra or city because of work commute
Closer
reasons?
to Parramatta. Yeah, we were in Maryland actually. Yeah,
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah. A lot closer,
Maryland. So we lived
basically.
in a lot of different areas around Parramatta
Yeah.
around that time, and yeah, so it was in Maryland.
And with your mate who introduced you this property, by the way, that was great due diligence. He says yes, and then you says yes, that's done deal.
That's the due diligence I know of. Yeah, at
Uh,
that time.
but he must be a very trusted person, a trusted friend of yours. And like what I guess at that point in time, did you just basically take his guidance? He just says, "Look, Adeel, this is a great deal. You should just buy it." And then you go, "Off we go. Let's just do it." So
I
nothing.
think the discussion, if I recall now, to be honest with you, David, the discussion was exactly around what we are discussing at this point of time around
Okay.
cash flow.
Cash flow,
Because
yeah.
I remember my thing was, if I'm not living there, I'm already renting somewhere, which means that is an expense for me. So
Yes.
I don't want to buy a property in which I have to pay any piece of mortgage from my pocket. So I have to make sure that it is cash flow neutral as a minimum. And he
Beautiful.
said to me, if you buy a house which is a single dwelling, you cannot achieve it. It's not easy because interest rates around that time were still around 6-7%, which is pretty much the case right now.
Correct.
They
Yeah.
started to go down slowly, but they were still around that mark. So he said, whether you buy something which will hold, which you don't want to pay anything out of your pocket, you have to look for a house plus granny. So I took his advice. That was the key
Mhm.
advice I remember from him. And yeah, and that's where I actually landed on this property. To be honest, there was not much I actually checked on that one at that point of time.
They say beginner's luck, and you certainly scored yourself quite well as the foundation property, because they always say the foundation property is the most
Yep,
important as well, right?
it is. It
So,
is.
but having something that's got a 6% gross yield from day one, I think the rationale behind it, as you explained, you wouldn't have gone wrong in that scenario anyway. So, well done in making that purchase. So, what happened since then?
So it turned out to be good in a sense. But yes, it was 6% from day one, as you mentioned, but it also had really good growth over the next couple of years.
Mhm.
So I remember 2 years later, I was sitting at CBA, that's the bank I was lending with,
Yep.
and I was there to get a credit card, and they said, "Oh, by the way, you have a property, and we have a loan. You have a loan with us." And I said, "Yes, I know that." So they said, "Do you know what's the property worth?" I said, "I have no idea." And they told me, and that was like already gone up by 160, 170 grand in like just over 2 years. And I was like, wow,
Yep.
that's humongous. What made that grow? How has it gone up? And said, well, that was a good purchase. You bought in a good area. I said, well, I did not know it was a good area at the time, but that's good. I mean, I was just blank, and they said, do you want to buy another property? And I said, why do I want to buy another property? I don't want to sell this. And they said, well, you don't want to sell this to buy the next one. And that was really a light bulb moment for me. I mean, what do you mean by that? And they said, oh, you can just refinance this equity out. You can just cash in your account and you can use it for the next purchase. And I said, what does that mean? And they explained me the process of equity and cash out and all that for the first time. And I was like, okay, that was a light bulb thing because again, my father was and is an investor overseas. So he lives overseas and he's an investor. And I had seen my father build a property portfolio. So I always had that thought in the back of my mind that I want to build a property portfolio for my family as well.
Beautiful.
And everything my father did was out of cash. So there was no leverage, there was no bank's money. He
Yeah.
bought everything out of cash. That's how the rule of the land is back overseas. But over here, it was like, oh, you can actually put just 10% or 20% deposit and the rest comes from the bank.
Mm.
And if the value goes up by 10% or by 100 grand, that 100 grand is all yours. You don't get 10% of it, you get all of it.
Mhm.
So that's when I realized that, okay, I have that much equity, I can refinance. And that's when I actually bought my second investment at that time.
Okay. Okay. So, yep. Okay. So, in summary, you basically took out how much equity did you took out from the Campbelltown property?
I think I did not take out the
Roughly
whole thing. I only took out maybe
150,
serviceability wise, I could only take out maybe 80 grand or something.
80 grand. Okay. So, 80
70, 80
grand.
grand. Yeah.
Yep. And for the next purchase, for that next investment property, whereabouts is it, and what's the thinking behind? Did you reach out to your mate again?
By that time, I thought that I have done really well, and I reached out to to mate again, and the borrowing that I had at the time was less than 400,
Oh, right. Okay.
400, 450, something like that. And in that price point, I was not able to get any house
Mm.
in the areas that I was looking, which I thought would be good areas. So because in the meanwhile, I was looking at some of the suburbs and tried to understand about the market a bit more after my first purchase because I got interested into it.
Yes.
So my new borrowing did not allow me to buy a house. So what I did was I thought, okay, this is my new budget. If I can't buy a house, so what's the next best thing available? And I ended up putting my money in off the plan deal, which was something I should have never done because that's where it went all horribly wrong.
Sorry, did you say, was it off the planned property or what was it?
Yeah, it was an off the plan property at the time, which I put my money down to, and we got the
Yep.
property after I had bought it. After the first 12 months, I realized that it was pretty much an oversupply area. It was again in Southwest Sydney,
Mm.
but it was something which was really oversupplied with that kind of property. It was a townhouse, uh, and it was too many of them, to be honest.
Mm.
So it was not something that was the right decision, and it really costed me a lot, and it taught me a lot as well.
So you were constrained of the budget at that point in time. And because
Yep,
you only know about Sydney, that's why you were looking at Sydney and you're trying to retrofit
exactly.
in terms of what you can get with this budget within
Yep,
Sydney. And that's what landed you to the townhouse in uh let me have a stab in the dark. Liverpool.
close, close,
All right,
very
I'm gonna
close.
give up. I'm not a Southwest person. You can share the answers. What
Very, very, very close. It was very close to Liverpool, maybe like 10 minutes from there.
okay.
But yeah, not a good choice and probably m- primarily driven by the fact that this is my budget. This is where I live. What can I find? What can I afford around in this area? Because that's
Mm,
all I know. And we only want to do things, we only tend to do things that we are aware of because
correct.
that's how we feel safe and we feel in control,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that's exactly what I did. And I think that's what a lot of people think as well today.
I see. Okay. So did you run past this idea, this property with your mates beforehand? Did he say, yes, no, you should do it, you shouldn't do it, Adeel? Did you
I,
run
I
past?
I did run it past through him. I mean, he was not too fond of the idea, but he because I couldn't think of any other option because he had no other option as well. So I asked him
Yeah,
what's better I can do in my borrowing, and he had no answer to it.
I see.
So it was kind of just wait and watch kind of a scenario, or just go and buy this thing
Mhm.
and try to leverage more money because one property had done well, so I wanted two of them to do well so that I can grow faster. So that
Correct.
was the whole motive behind it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So this is in 2016, is that right? 2016, 2017?
2016 it was. Yes, that's when it happened. Yep.
2016. So the townhouse was built in 2016 and then you hold it for a year. So that'll be in 2017. You realize the growth isn't that great. What happens then?
Well, I did realize came to the realization that it has actually went backward in value
Oh,
in the first 12 months itself, even though it was brand new. And I was like, man, what's happening? So whatever I invested, I've kind of lost that money as well. So
mm,
that was not a good feeling. It was really bad and it was really uh, very concerning as well because it was like you start questioning yourself, what have I done? And I probably should have spoken to someone. And in hindsight, you start blaming everyone and everything. So that
mm.
was a scenario at that time, and I like it was a tough time, right? Because it was just sitting over there, couldn't even sell it. If I sold it, I would have lost at least 30, 40 grand straight away, plus all the stamp duties which I paid on that one that was on top of it. So
Yes.
I couldn't even sell that. So that's when I first time realized that exiting a property is a big cost in itself. So you can't just buy anything anywhere, and if it doesn't work out, you will just sell it. That's not how it works. So that was one of the very key lessons for me that you have to buy something with a long term view,
Mm.
not with something that you can sell like a pair of shoes or something.
Not like something that you can flip or shares that you can just basically get rid of tomorrow, right? You can just trade.
Exactly, exactly. It's not that easy with property.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good lesson, mate. I got to tell you. I mean, you obviously assess the feasibility of selling it, and you work out the cost. You go, I'm going to be in the red by this much. Should I take the loss?
Mm.
Should I take the leap? But the issue, I think, from memory, correct me if I'm wrong. Back in 2017, the Sydney market isn't that great as well because the APRA would have just started to put on the handbrakes on lending as well. So Sydney actually had a bit of a break in terms of growth. So you actually happen to be stuck in a limbo at that point.
I think to be honest with you, I bought this thing when the last 1 year of growth was still there because this thing started in 2017
Mhm.
and I had the property since 2016. So I should have had some kind of growth, but I think it was such a uh, such an ordinary decision which I had made previously that even in that 1 year of growth, my property actually went backward.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if I had to sell that, it would have sold for less than what I purchased it for.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even that 1 year of growth did not impact it much, or maybe it actually reduced the losses, I would say. It did not go down by 60 grand. It just went down by 20 or 30 grand,
Mm, mm,
right?
mm.
So yeah, it was that time exactly where, as you said, the lending was becoming more difficult and Sydney property market was starting to become a bit more stable and more predictable, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's how it continued until 2019, early 2020,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. So no movements and no progression basically from 2017, 2018 all the way to 2020. You just hold on to these two properties and you're thinking about what your next move is. Is that right?
I started a lot of, I started asking questions. I started trying to find answer to my questions because my biggest problem was if I'm stuck with this asset which I can't even sell, what are my options? How do I move forward?
Yes.
Right? Because I still had that desire to build a property portfolio. I
Yeah.
still wanted to have that financial freedom at the back of my mind, right?
Perfect.
And I had no clue of anything else apart from property.
Mm.
So I had to make sure that the property is the way out for me. I had heard about shares, I had heard about other asset types, but I was too naive or too ignorant, to be honest, to actually delve into them. So I said, I will keep doing property thing, but I decided not to buy something. That's when I started and decided to actually educate myself.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
when the education process started for myself, learning about property markets, learning about growth cycles. That's when I first realized what is the importance of vacancy rates, what is the importance of having a diverse economy
Mm.
where you are buying, so that you are not dependent on just one factor like mining or manufacturing. You should be buying somewhere which is diverse. I also realized the importance of supply and demand.
Mhm.
So if you want good price growth, I first time realized that you don't go and buy in a brand new suburb because that's where the supply is the highest.
Exactly.
And you always have to think from the perspective of what you are buying now, who will buy this from you 20 years later? So if you can answer that question, then it is a good buy. But if you can't answer that question, that who will be the buyer 20 years later for your asset, because ultimately you have to sell it at some point, right?
Yes.
20, 30
Correct.
years.
Mhm.
If you can't find an answer to that, it means you are probably taking an emotional decision or you need to do a bit more due diligence on that.
Mm,
You
mm.
can't just buy it. So yeah, a lot of education happened at that time.
And how did you get these education at that point? What did you do? Like, is it online? Is it seminars, webinars?
A lot of seminars were face to face at that time. I remember there was not much online concept. There was some online things happening. There were some people who were offering stuff around developments as to how the developments can happen,
Yeah.
or around subdivisions and codes. And that's when I started understanding about zoning, about frontage of blocks, about slopes of blocks, about easements. So
Mhm.
that also interested me, even though I did not have any funds, but I started learning about it just to
Mm,
get a feeling. And that all helps me now because these are the questions I get from my clients who want to get
exactly.
into those kind of deals. So it's all coming back and helping me in what we do now. But yeah, it was more around learning online, yes, and a lot of face-to-face stuff as well, like 1 day event, 2 day event, all these courses. So I've done all those courses which we hear of around happening right now, and we get the ads for them. I've done most of them.
Yeah, right. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So the education piece basically came in after the second property. And what happens next? What happens with your next step?
I think 2017, 2018, even 2019, there's a lot of education that I was doing. And in 2019, I kind of realized that I still had those two properties, the one in Campbelltown and my second investment as well.
Correct.
So that's when I decided I had a lot more confidence. I had a lot more clarity. And I had also realized at that time that what is interstate investing and what is borderless investing.
Hmm.
So I came across this concept as well. At the same time, when I was learning, I came across the concept of rent vesting, which means you rent where you want to live, where you love the lifestyle,
Yeah.
but you buy properties and assets where you can afford them
Yeah.
and where the cash flow supports you as well,
Yeah.
which allows you to keep buying more assets like that and build a property portfolio faster.
Yes.
So I learned about it and I realized, well, after owning two properties for like last 3, 4 years, I'm actually a rent investor, right? So I did not have an idea of that. So that's what I first learned. And that was the first time I took a dig at interstate investing. And I actually went to Brisbane. So
Okay.
Brisbane was the place I bought my second property, and that was in 2019.
So did you cut loss on the second on the townhouse that you sold before you move on? Because remember, you don't have any borrowing capacity at that point in time, right?
We had some income increase. I swapped jobs as well. So I got into a different corporate job because while I was doing all this learning, I was
Yep.
still doing my corporate role. So I moved my corporate jobs. My salary increased as well.
Got
So
it.
now in I was earning around 150, 160 grand at the time. That was the household income, which was pretty good at that time. With the inflation, it doesn't seem to be that good now. But that at that time, 5, 6 years ago, back in 2019, it was a really good income. And that allowed me a bit more leverage at the time. So in 2019, towards the end of it, actually, I bought this second investment, which was the first one, interstate.
Mm.
And I still had those two properties with me. So I was still
Oh, yes.
finding a way to get rid of that townhouse. So, and I soon actually got rid of it in 2020 when COVID hit and everything started selling really quick. So by
Okay.
mid of 2020, I sold that townhouse as well.
Right. Okay. So circling back into the Brisbane purchase, before you do that, did you take out any more equity from your Campbelltown purchase? I'm assuming that probably would
That
have
was the
continued to go
one.
up
That was the
again.
one that helped me again. Yeah, that was the one that helped me again with the deposit. So it was that one property, and it made me realize that it had again grown to a point where I could actually refinance again. So I think I refinanced another 90 or 100 grand out of it.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that
and that helped me with my third purchase actually. Yes.
yeah, in Brisbane,
So it
right?
was second purchase through that equity, but third investment overall.
Yes. And tell us about this third purchase in Brisbane. What was the process like? And how did you do the due diligence? Did you actually fly on the ground? Did you actually go up to Brisbane to see what the area is like? Tell us
Initially,
how.
I did. Yes, initially I did because I was still too scared after that previous experience. I wanted to still go and have a look. So I had a very good idea by then what kind of data to look and what data you can look, and anyone can look actually to preempt and foresee what kind of growth a suburb can have in the next 5 years.
Mm.
So I had a very good confidence, and based on my shortlisting of data, I actually visited few areas, met few agents over there. And once I got a bit of confidence, it was like, yeah, okay, I did some open homes as well. I couldn't secure any of those properties, but once I came back, that is when I had seen those areas. I had met some agents. I knew some good streets. So based on that, I started putting offers, and I did secure a property after that.
Beautiful. Whereabouts is the third property?
So that was in Crestmead.
Crestmead.
It's in
Yep.
Logan. Yep. And potentially considered not to be, people think it's a very rough suburb, but
Not
that was another
anymore.
big learning for me that depending on which part of the suburb you are buying, every suburb has some kind of social housing in Australia. There is hardly any suburb which has no social housing at all,
Yep.
even though some of the data may suggest that like microburbs and things like that will tell you that certain suburbs will have 0% social housing. That
Mhm.
is very unlikely because in reality, there's always some government funded housing in every suburb, and all the new suburbs have that. So, another key learning in that investment was that even though it was a bit rough area, but my data analysis was suggesting it is the right area to put my money in.
Mhm.
So, it turned out to be exactly the way I was thinking, and it was a really good purchase that we were able to make at that point.
So what were the key criterias in order for you to make that trigger? Would you be able to share some of your thinking process at that point in time in
I
making?
would love to. I would love to. I'm all about data, so more than happy to share that. I think some of the key data that people can use today as if they are looking to make that decision is looking at the comparable data. A lot of times when people are looking to buy houses, they're comparing it with something completely different.
Yep.
They're looking at houses which were sold 6 months ago, or which were they're looking to buy a 600 square meter lot house, but they're trying to compare it with a small villa or something, just
Yep.
because it's in the next street. Well, it doesn't really work that way. So you need to be really able to identify the right kind of comparable. That's important. But even
Mhm.
before you go into that, you need to be able to find the right suburb.
Mhm.
That's the first step.
Mm.
Unless you find the right areas to put your money in, finding the right property will not work. It's always the second step. The first step has to be the right area. And
Mhm.
for that, some of the key criteria I was looking at was future supply, because I
Yep.
did not want to buy in an area where there were suddenly too many apartments or too many high residential high what do you high zoning
Density.
high
Yep.
density. I did not
Density.
want to buy something into high density, right?
Mhm.
So that is what kills your future capital growth. So future council approval is really important. That should be a low number. What the council has approved in the last 12 months, 24 months, it's available on ABS website. That is where you can look at it. Then you
Beautiful.
need to understand what kind of trends are happening in terms of vacancy rates. Are the vacancy rates going up or they're going down? What does the stock level look like? The stock which is coming to the market for selling. Is it increasing in the last 3, 4, 5 months, or is it going down? But because if the stock is consistently increasing for sale, guess what? People are getting more options to choose from.
Correct.
And it may be a sign that the suburb may well be an oversupply area 6 months later. So it may have some good demand now, but if you want that future capital growth, you want to be buying in areas where the future supply will stay low. There will be less properties hitting the market so that there's more competition for those properties and the prices can keep rising. So yeah, these are some of the things people can look at: vacancy rates, how many sales properties are available for sale, how many properties, how quickly the properties are selling, days on market is a very key criteria. So that should be getting lower and lower. So typically it should be less than 40, 40 days for a given suburb, which means if a property gets listed today, it will be sold within the next 20, 25, 30, 35 days, right?
Yep.
If it's taking 60 days for the property to sell on average in that suburb, it's a clear indication that the demand is not there.
Yep.
And price growth in the next 5 years can be a challenge.
Yeah. Okay. So circling back, all using these metrics in terms of your Crestmead purchase, what did it tick?
I think it was a good area in terms of most of these were actually true at that time, because the vacancy rate I remember was under 2%, which was
Beautiful.
pretty good.
Yep.
Pretty good at that time. Under 2%, like 2% right now is not really good because it's a really tight rental market. So it should be less than 1.5 at this stage.
Yep.
2% is not really good enough at this point. But it was a vacancy rate of around 2 at that time. It was a low supply area, and we were getting some more increase in terms of demand as well, as to how much the people were actually inquiring for those properties in those suburbs. So which is, I did not talk about this metric, but this is the search interest ratio. So how many people are actually putting inquiries through for properties in that suburb?
Yeah.
Through realestate.com and domain.com. So that's also a very good indicator. So that should be rising as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. So how much did you get it for at that point?
So that was for I think it was quite cheap for a house.
Low 300s, let me guess.
Yeah, it was low 300. It was not even 350. It was, I think, 340 something.
Okay. Okay. Yep. And how big?
600 square meter block.
600 square meter block. You know.
5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms.
And how much was it rented for?
Oh, that was renting at that time. It was renting for 450.
Yeah, there you go. So very good cash flow. Very good cash flow
450
machine.
at that time, and it has risen in terms of its value as well. I still have it. I still own it, and it has also allowed me to further buy other properties as well because of its growth. Currently it is renting for 700 a week.
That's pretty good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How much is the value today? Just out of curiosity, like how much would it be valued for?
The value is in mid sixes, easy.
Mid-sixes? Yeah.
Easy, mid sixes, 650 plus.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it has given me 300 grand of equity, easy.
Pretty much doubled your money in about 5 years or even 4 years, right?
In about 5, 6 years, I would say it has nearly doubled already. Yes.
Yeah. Well done. Well done. So, and have you actually been into the property? Just out of curiosity, have you seen the property yourself?
The first time I went into the property was last year.
Last year. Okay. So you had the property for about 4 years and you'd never seen it
4 or 5
except for the
years
photos.
actually,
Yeah.
And I'd only seen photos. I took the decision on photos because I had that knowledge. I knew what to check for. I knew what softwares to check. I knew what questions to ask the local council.
Yeah.
So I had that confidence that even while I was in Sydney, I did not go and visit the property. I did not do any open home. I had that confidence that I'm buying the right asset. And it turned out to be a really good asset as well for me because it was, as I said, it has allowed me to buy 2 more assets after that, just from that particular property.
Beautiful. Okay, well, tell us more about that. So after the third property, you obviously got the property bug. You know, the data's all checks out. You found the magical formula. Where to go from there?
So after that, our next purchase was again looking at the data. Wanted to make sure that I can make that solid 30-40% growth in the first 3 years of my purchase.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key, because that allows you to buy another property just by refinancing and building your portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized by that time that Sydney is not the place for me, because yes, you get growth in Sydney, but the biggest challenge is if you buy a house in Sydney, your cash flow is really negatively geared.
Correct.
So you have to pay a lot from your pocket, which, as you know, the banks will not love you for that. They will not give you more loan. Your
No.
serviceability sucks after that, right? So I had realized that Sydney is done for me for now, and I did not buy anything in Sydney for myself after that.
Okay. Okay.
So I have 6 properties up until now, but
Yep.
the first property I bought in Sydney is the only one I have.
Okay. That's fine. Yep. Which is
Yeah. So
the,
I
the star
from
performer.
there I bought into Adelaide.
Adelaide. Okay. So the 4 properties in
That was
Adelaide.
2021. That was 2021 when we bought in Adelaide.
Good timing. Okay. And
Yep.
what leads you to Adelaide this time?
Again, some of the very a lot of infrastructure activity that was starting to shape up in Adelaide, which is still ongoing,
Mm.
But that infrastructure, there was a lot of work happening in the defense area, a lot of investment from the state government in the renewable energy sector, like the
Mhm.
wind energy, the solar energy.
Yep.
So at that time, the most of the investment was coming from South Australian government, if you
Okay.
compare all these states.
Government
So
funding.
Adelaide was going through a lot of infrastructure revamp, infrastructure boom,
Yep.
and a lot of data, as I told you, like supply was starting to shrink, which of course puts a lot of pressure on demand. COVID had already hit. So people were moving regional, people were moving interstate, people had the option of working remotely. So Zoom had kicked in, the one we are recording on right now. So Zoom was
Absolutely.
all live and thriving. So people were using Zoom, Microsoft Teams.
Yes.
So people were looking at those smaller cities and relocate. And instead of going completely regional, people were still open to idea of buying. They could still buy a house worth 400 grand
Mhm.
in Adelaide,
Mhm.
in Brisbane, a lot of parts of Brisbane,
Yes.
in Perth, and still
Yes.
have a good lifestyle, right? Like 10 minutes from the beach,
Yeah.
15 minutes from the beach, and still rent out very well. Not much traffic. Still, it was much cheaper to live over there. The cost of living was way below than what it was in Sydney and Melbourne. Melbourne was going through a lot of lockdown, so Melbourne pushed me away.
Okay.
So I did not think of Melbourne just because of that COVID lockdowns as well at that time. So yeah, that's what brought me to Adelaide,
So this is
and that's
this
where
is
we
the
bought our
purchase.
fourth property.
This is the first purchase during COVID.
The first purchase during COVID, yes,
First
2021.
purchase during COVID. Okay. And did you say this one's in 2021?
2021, yep.
2021. Okay. And which suburb is this one in?
Parafield Gardens.
Parafield Gardens. Okay, yeah, I remember that one. Okay. Yep. No, that's definitely a really good one. What was the purchase price, just out of curiosity?
Just over 400.
Just over 400 today. And
409.
how okay, wait, how much was it
Four,
today?
409.
Oh nine, 49. How
You're
much?
just making me recall all those numbers now. So it's interesting because it's a bit of a deja vu kind of a situation.
See, sometimes you need someone to walk you through your memory lane, right? In order to bring back all these now you can imagine yourself at the time when you're purchasing the property and the numbers are starting to come back. Um,
Exactly, exactly. You can't even imagine finding something in Adelaide for that price point.
no way. No, we're not even Logan nowadays. Like Logan's are around the 600 Ks now, basically. Easy.
Easy,
I
easy.
was surprised.
600 plus, yeah.
Yeah.
Same with like Parafield Garden, the way it has grown, all that Salisbury Council, all that area,
Yep.
Manopara, Paraloe, Parafield Gardens,
Yeah.
down south Modbury, which is really a very desirable area. So they have done so well. And we, at that time, my business was also running. So we bought a lot for people over there as well for our clients. So
Oh, yes.
this purchase of mine intersected with my first year of business as well.
Okay.
So this
Okay.
Adelaide purchase
Beautiful.
went hand in hand with my first year in business. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. Okay. So Parafield
So
Gardens.
it's very special for me for that reason as well.
That's a key milestone, mate. Well done. That's a key milestone. So, okay, so fourth
Thanks. Yeah.
property in Parafield Gardens. How much was it renting for at that point when you purchased?
It was renting for 420 a week.
420. Okay, so about 409K purchase price, 420 a week, roughly about 5% gross yield.
Yep.
Any value add of that? How big is a block of land?
The block of land is 620, 630.
Okay. Okay.
So that was not subdividable. That's where I missed the boat in that one, because I later on realized that I could have bought something if I would have gone 700 square meter plus with a 18-meter plus frontage.
Yep.
I would have been able to subdivide that in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same council, right?
You
So
don't know what you
that
got.
this particular one was not subdividable. But yeah, we did a lot of subdivision deals afterwards for art lines.
Okay, okay, beautiful. All right.
Yep,
So this one is also just a buy and hold, and sounds like Crispy is also a buy and hold, essentially.
yep,
Okay.
yep.
So where to after the Parafield Gardens purchase?
So we had 4 properties, and I wanted to diversify myself because I was also aware of land tax implications as well.
Mm,
And that's when I realized that we need to be a bit more proactive and look elsewhere as well.
okay.
So our next purchase actually came back in New South Wales,
Okay, back in New South Wales. Okay.
and that was in Central Coast. That was the following year in 2022.
Central Coast, that's around the time when, right in the middle of COVID, when everyone's kind of moving more towards the regional areas. And Central Coast was one of those hot spots or hot areas. There's a lot of people are
It
looking for
was, it
lifestyle,
was,
isn't it?
it
Okay.
was, yes.
Tell us the thinking about that. Like, why did you get into Central Coast at that point in time?
Diversification was one reason. And again, that feeling and that thought always comes. I think being in Sydney, it always comes in your mind. Can I buy something in Sydney? Can I buy more in Sydney? Kind of thing. So that was still hitting me at the back of my head. So I was still looking
Right.
at data. I had realized I will not take any decision without uh, like on my gut feel,
Mm-hmm.
because gut feel is only good enough when it is supported by data.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's purely gut feel, then you are messing it up. You are setting yourself up for disaster. So Central Coast was showing up really well, that it was a good place to be investing at that point of time. It was late 2021, early 2022. So it
Okay.
was an early 22 purchase, which we did in Central Coast. And we got a really good deal because, again, it has performed really well, and it has provision of a granny flat as well.
Nice.
So we can add a granny flat at any point we want.
Yep.
So yeah, that was the main reason, because I wanted to be in a situation where I can, instead of buying another property, I can probably spend another 150 grand or something to put a granny flat, and that should be able to generate me three, four, $500 per week.
Good.
So
So
that
I
was
think you're starting to look at value adds, essentially. You're
exactly,
not just happy with buy and holds anymore, which is a natural progression, right? You get buy and hold up to the point you say you want more. You want something that you can do more. You can generate manufacture equity
yep,
or add a granny flat, right? Or renovation, some kind of strategy that allows you to be able to do that. So
exactly.
this
So
one
that
fits.
brought me back to New South Wales. So
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
that's where all the indicators were. So yes, we made it purchase. It was in Gurukan at the time.
Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
A
How
purchase for 510.
510?
Yep. And big block, 600, 640, 650, I think, somewhere around there.
650? Yep.
A 3-bed, 2-bath house. And at the time, it was renting for 500 a week. It has gone up since then. It is
Mm-hmm.
sitting at 600 right now. And it has provision of a granny as well. So yeah, we can. So that's a value add that I will be doing in the next couple of years.
Okay, beautiful. Something to execute and look forward to in that sense. How much would it be worth today, do you reckon?
Today, that is definitely seven. I would say 720, 730
Around
plus.
720, 730. Yep. Okay. So a good
Easy.
rough, a good 40% type of uplift in terms of the value without even doing anything. Anything to,
Without it doing, yeah, like 14, 15% it has done in the last 2 years.
yeah.
Yeah, in the last 2 years.
Yeah. Okay.
So, which me, and I'm keeping a close eye on that because I plan to use that one for my next purchase.
What do you plan to do? Take the equity out and then
Either I
go,
take
yeah.
the equity out or build a granny on it, or I go and buy something else.
Okay.
So I'm still tossing up the idea.
That's the thing, right? When you have a portfolio, you have options in terms of what you can do. So that's the beauty of it. You basically pay interest to be able to hold on to these properties, but you ultimately get the control in terms of what you want to do and what you can execute. So,
Yep,
and that's the power of having a portfolio as well. Absolutely. Okay,
exactly.
beautiful. So after Central Coast, where to? Perth this time. Let me guess, because that's the hottest market.
You have to make a guess now. Come on, you have
I
to do it.
gotta make a punt.
Of course, it was supposed to be Perth. Yeah, it is Perth. So went to Perth, 2023. It was last year. That was the final purchase,
Mm.
and Perth has been doing
Now.
amazingly well. So we bought there for myself, started buying for our clients as well. This property that I bought was in Rockingham Council
Rockingham. Yep. Yep.
down south, and it's a really nice 4x2 house on a big block of land, like 700 square meter lot,
Mm.
and solid brick home, really, really well layout. 30 years old at the time, and it was returning 480 a week.
480 a week. Okay.
We have just revised the rentals to 550 a week from this year. So
Yeah.
as you know, the rents are going really crazy over there. So yeah, that was the last purchase.
How much did you get it for?
That was for 473, 474. Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah. Rockingham has gone up heaps. I think a lot of it's now closer to
that was
edging
18
towards six.
months ago, and now you can't find something like that for under 600K at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
was around 472, 3 at that time. And now you can't find anything without a 6 in front of it.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. Especially when it's a four
It-
bedroom as well. That's
Yeah, 4 bed, 2 bath.
mm.
So yeah, that's the one, and really done well with that one as well. I mean, in the short time frame, and as you said, just gives options and just gives that peace of mind that yes, your portfolio is starting to take shape now.
What are you thinking about this property, this latest one at Rockingham? Are you doing anything or you're just a buy and hold?
So this one is buy and hold for now.
Okay.
I will be coming back to my the Central Coast one to put a granny on that.
Yep.
So I have these two properties with me, the Central Coast one and the Perth one, which have gone really well in terms of their equity.
Yep.
So one of them should be ready to actually refinance again and either build a granny or buy another property. And then second one should be ready uh, later this year or early next year, where I can refinance the other one as well, especially the Perth one,
Mm.
and look for the seventh property.
Beautiful, mate. That's such an inspiration story, mate. I got to say, obviously over the last few years, you found a magic formula in terms of finding a property, finding a location, finding a right property, and then be able to ride on that wave as Australia's property prices continue to go up. So well done, kudos. And I'm
Thank you
sure
so
for
much.
those people who's wanting to know that secret formula, they have to reach out to you. I'm sorry, as much as I'd like to get that, it doesn't come as a free obligation as much as I like to.
It's simple supply and demand, to be honest, but it's much detailed than that. If you can figure out supply and demand uh, as to how it will look like in future, a lot of people look at the past data. Oh, it has done so well in the past, so let's buy over there. That's the one thing you should never be doing. If something has done really well in like Rockingham area, I will not buy in Rockingham now, because in the last 2 years, Rockingham has gone up by 30-40%.
Yeah, it's heaps. Yeah.
So it won't go up for 40% in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
So it has already been close to its peak. So I will stay away from Rockingham. Will it grow in value? Yes, it will. But just a quick tip for your viewers as well. Don't buy in areas which have grown by like 30, 40, 50% in the last 2 years, because you are buying at the peak of the market.
Exactly. Especially and especially when it made the news as well, then you kind of know it's already too late.
Already late. And please stay away from the areas which you hear in the news. You're scrolling the channels or 7 News, 9 News in the evening on your couch, and you hear those top 3 suburbs to invest. These are the top 3 locations not to invest, because they were the locations 2 years ago, not today.
Run away as far as you can.
Exactly.
Too late.
Exactly.
Too late. Okay. All right. Well, look, that's a fascinating story, I gotta say, Adeel. And I probably should have asked you this, but what's the ultimate goal? Like you as a property investor, you're collecting these houses, obviously, it's for growth, for long-term growth. But do you have a plan? Like what sort are you looking for? Passive income? Do you want to build a capital of some sort? What have you got in mind in long term?
Very valid question, right? Very valid question. And my ultimate goal is the financial security
Okay. Yeah.
for my family, for my kids moving forward, not having to worry about where will the money come in for the lifestyle, where will the bills be paid from. So I want to make sure that I don't have to worry about it. And I've given myself a certain time frame. So I have 12 more years to go until I hit 50, and I have certain targets to achieve before then. So
Good.
I've started. I hear a lot of people these days, and I just want to clear that misconception as well. They hear the term of passive income and financial freedom, and they say, "Oh, we already have one home. We want to buy that next property because it will give us passive income." And I say, with 6-7% of interest rates, there is no property that can give you passive income from day one, because your rental cannot be 10%, right?
Mm.
So you have to work towards it. Just like your first home cannot be your dream home,
Mm.
similarly, your first investment property can never deliver you passive income unless you pay 50% as a deposit,
That's
which
right.
you should not.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
should actually divide and leverage and buy 4 or 5 assets using that 50% deposit instead of just buying one asset, because they all grow in value and you have a solid base quicker and faster. So yeah, a lot of people have this misconception. Oh, I'll just want to buy property. It will deliver me $200 a week, $500 a month kind of thing. Well, it will. It will. Like, I can share my experience. My portfolio is delivering me $1,500-$1,600 a month now
Beautiful.
after all these years.
Yeah.
The interest rates are high. All my properties are on loans and I've refinanced them as well. But I'm only getting a very small amount of passive income of $1,500. But I know, based on my strategy, that in 5 years' time, that $1,500 per month will actually go up to $3,200 per month.
Mm.
And in the following 5 years, that will hit $8,000 per month.
Yeah.
So in the next 12 years' time, I will definitely hit that $10,000 per month mark, which is my ultimate target. And that is after tax.
Yeah, right.
I'm not including tax over here. That is cash free, tax
Cash
free
free.
income.
Yeah. After tax, basically. After taxes.
I'm talking about after tax. Yeah. So everyone's tax bracket is different. So I cannot comment on that. But please don't start thinking, people, that I will buy something and in 2-3 months' time, I'll start having positive cash flow coming through. It just doesn't happen that way. It has
Definitely
to be a
not.
slow and steady race.
Definitely not in today's environment. And look, it took you what, when you get serious around 2019, it took you 5 years of solid work to get to where you are today as well. And you certainly didn't come in with a mindset that, the next property I get has to be cash flow positive from day one. That's a very different type of play there, right? Like you've adopted, actually, when I think back, the type of properties that you bought are fairly conservative as well, and they're pretty neutral. They're actually not too negative. Like, we look at the Crestmead one, we look at the Parafield Gardens one. They're mostly around 5% plus type of gross rental yield, which
Yep.
tells me that you are fairly conservative in nature when you kind of like look into that. But at the same time, you're also riding on the capital growth and the wave and the growth wave that's actually available. So
You're
it's
right, David. Yeah, exactly. Like, if you can buy something with 5% plus rental yield, it ensures that your cash flow, your pockets are not
yeah,
draining, right? And
yeah,
your cash flow is still under control, even with the interest rates being 6.57%, whatever it is right now. You're
exactly.
still not hugely out of pocket. And if you're buying the right asset, then that will still keep growing in value. And if you can buy multiple assets like these, as long as your cash flow allows you to do it,
Yeah,
then that is where your growth happens. So I suggest people take one step at a time. I think I did not buy 3 properties in 1 year. I never bought that way. I never did that way. I always took one step at a time. So I had a bad experience. I learned from it. I learned a lot, and my clients are learning from it as well. So they're getting best use of that as well. So yeah, it's all about taking one step at a time, but also knowing in your head whether this particular step will help you take 2 more steps afterwards.
that's right. Yeah.
Every
Good.
purchase should support your future purchases. That's what I believe in property.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's absolutely right. So you need to know where you are going in terms of the direction, and you need
Yep,
to make sure this property is helping you to move closer to that goal, basically.
exactly. That's the
Yeah.
idea.
Beautiful, mate. Well, love it, mate. Love it. Any final wisdom, anything that you learned from your own journey? Obviously you shared a lot today. Have you got anything else you'd like to share with us?
I think patience is the key, and
Patience.
having the right information and the right mindset is very important. A lot of people keep pushing these things. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone should start investing in property, but everyone should think of investing in something.
Mhm.
Either invest in property or shares or stocks or whatever you're comfortable with, or in your own health or in your own learning.
True.
But do invest somewhere and start from today.
Yeah.
Don't leave it for tomorrow, because it just doesn't happen otherwise.
So say yesterday is the best time to buy. The next best time to buy is today, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It's so true. And it's even true for, like, self-development as well.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Self-development.
yeah, I'm big on self-development. I need to improve on that, on myself, like my physical fitness. I need to get better at that. But it's something that is always very, very important.
Absolutely, mate. Look, thank you, Adeel. And thank you so much for sharing all that knowledge with us today. In case anyone interested in terms of knowing more, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, I would love to have a chat with someone who wants to understand about my journey or wants to share their plans of their journey. Happy to guide them as well. So they can reach out directly to myself. My mobile is 0493 237 933, or they can leave me an email at helpme@arizabuyersagency.com.au. Ariza is ARIZABUYERS agency.com.au.
Beautiful. Look, I'll include this in the show notes as well, so that in case that people do want to access them, they've got that handy as well. Okay, so
Beautiful.
awesome, mate. Well, thank you very much again. And look, I think we'll probably bring you on in, let's say, 6 to 12 months' time, as I'll be loving to see what's been happening in terms of your next steps and whether you ended up building a granny flat or you took up more equity to get your 7th purchase, right? That'll be another exciting journey to share
I
with
will have
us.
something for you for sure. Don't worry.
Beautiful, mate. All right. Well, thank you very much. And look, thank you for our listeners again. Thank you for joining us, and hope you enjoyed today's show. If you do like it, let us know, leave us a feedback. But otherwise, stay safe, and we'll see you guys again next time. Cheers, David.
Thanks, David. Thank you.